Welcome to the Monday, October 9th meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. We have a quorum. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I want to describe what we're going to be doing tonight because we have a very large crowd before we get started with the formal order of things. In terms of we'll approve the minutes in a minute, and then we're going to have citizen comment. We have 36 people signed up to speak, and each person will get 1 minute because we do need to we have a lot to consider tonight. So each person will get 1 minute. I'll give you, hold on 1 second. There are so many people speaking, and I think they're mostly here for one item. We do have two other items on the agenda. Maybe we could do the public comment pertinent to the particular agenda item. In other words, so the P1 and P2 don't have to wait through the entire lengthy presentations and such. Okay, we'll do it that way. So we'll have people who are here to speak on item P1 and item P2 speak first, and then we can take care of those items. Is that what you're
That seems to make some sense.
Okay, we'll take care of those items so those folks don't have to. They can stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, but they don't have to. And then we'll move to the public comment on P3. But everybody still gets 1 minute to speak, whether you're on P1 or P2. Then before the P3 item, which is the 1450 Sherman Avenue development, we'll have the public comment on that, and then we'll have a presentation by the developers of the project, and then we'll have a presentation by the citizens group, Citizens for Responsible Development. So, and each of them will get approximately 10 to 15 minutes of time, and then the committee will deliberate on that item, okay? And I'd like us all to move forward with this in a civil way. I'd really prefer it if you didn't all applaud after any particular issue. I recognize everyone is here you're here because you care passionately about issues, but we really do want to all at least maybe go home the day we came, so that's our goal. And also deliberate when we all are awake. Okay? All right. Thank you. So first item is approval of the minutes of the September 25th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. All right, now we're going to hear citizen comment on item P1, which is granting a vacation rental license to 2120 Madison Place. And the first person is on item P1 is Leslie Williams. Here she comes. She's coming from the back.
Hi, excuse me, you'll be hearing from me later. I had meant to sign up for the city council, not P1, so I'm yielding my time on this.
Okay.
All right, we've just saved a minute. Okay. Then let's deal with the issue of granting vacation rental license at 2120 Madison Place. Staff recommends approval of a vacation rental license for the property located. Okay, come forward, please.
Hi, we live on Madison Place, and we're a little bit confused. We just received a letter not too long ago about this, didn't know anything about it beforehand. So we're a little bit confused how you can approve this without hearing from anyone.
All right, let me ask staff. Okay. Was there supposed to be notice that went out to community members?
We only received this most recent notice, September 25th. And now we see that it's up for action instead of being able to comment.
Would you like to make comments tonight?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, well, go right ahead. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're a little bit concerned. It's a really quiet neighborhood. It's safe, and we're concerned of the changes that could occur with a move like this.
Mostly the changes we're concerned about is the safety issue. we're all so easy about accepting, commenting about Airbnbs, and people making those comments open it up to possible criminals. It's a very quiet neighborhood. It's a dead end. We are in Southwest Evanston. A lot of seniors live on our street and in our area, and a lot of children are starting to show up, so that's wonderful. But what we're worried about is the long-term effect, and then it only takes one criminal. So we weren't able to comment, so we don't really have anything specific to say other than we would like more time, but we also were surprised that this has been on the market since July. So how do you provide a license after the fact? How is that even legal? We found that out by being online. So, I mean, you looked as confused as we do. So is there any opportunity to extend this?
Certainly, yes. I think, would anyone on the committee like to comment? Alderman
my
Rainey?
light on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Well,
see. First, Alderman Ruth Simmons first, then Alderman Rainey.
Yeah, so we had similar in our neighborhood, a notice went out. I would like to know from staff the difference between a vacation rental, Airbnb, a short-term rental, what liberties or what restrictions. It's unclear, and I'm asking that maybe we hold this so that we can get some more answers on this.
Okay. Alderman Rainey?
Well, I was going to ask, when did we first start licensing vacation rental by owners? Which
Do
is
we know?
what this is.
Do you know?
Good evening, Deputy City Attorney. The ordinance was passed in 2013.
2013, all right. This appears to have been going on for quite some time. I think there were like 25 or 30 recommendations for this one.
Correct.
So it doesn't appear there has been any additional crime in your neighborhood because of this. So
Well, it's only been 3 months. I mean, we really can't say that. So what I'm suggesting is that if we were given extra time to study this better, I don't know if the majority of people here live in Southwest Evanston.
I do.
But, so my parents owned that for 43 years. I inherited it, and it has been the same for all that time. We have to concern ourselves about the safety of
No,
children
I agree.
and seniors who can
But
live
did you
there.
know, did you know this unit was, he rents out one bedroom? Yeah.
I know, so
Oh, you
we just,
didn't know.
what we're
Okay.
trying to tell you is we're clueless. We just recently found this out.
Which is a really good thing that you didn't know, because that means it's very, I mean, there doesn't-
Innocuous?
Yeah.
It's innocuous. Well, see, that's the problem.
That's
Is
a
I
good
think a
word.
lot of people think that it's innocuous until it only takes one. And because it's on Airbnb, which is
yeah.
open to the whole, who knows how many people, those comments can be very problematic. They can cause criminals to come to this quiet neighborhood, especially if they say, oh, it's very quiet, nobody's around during the day, blah, blah, blah. Hey, come on, let's rob this place. I mean, it's been very, very safe.
Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me, but I don't think it's fair, the reaction that you're giving to what she's saying. I mean, she's entitled, and so are we.
Yeah, I know.
To feel that way, even though you live in the same neighborhood,
Right.
and you think differently. I'm not rolling my eyes at what you're saying. I don't really think that's fair.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I
First,
think you have, that's why we're having this meeting. That's why you're up at the microphone, so you can give us your opinion. That's
But
why
I'd
we
like you to be
required.
open.
That's why we required a notice to the neighbors so that you could come here and speak. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't. We're encouraging you to speak, so we know.
Yeah, but it's also not fair to say the crime has not increased. You don't even know that. So I think we
I
need
do
some
know that.
time.
Yeah, I do.
I think we are planning to hold this, but we have two other aldermen who would like to comment. Okay. Alderman Wilson?
I think, Ms. Mason, the licenses are good for 1 year, is that right? And they have to be renewed?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not indefinite, so they don't get, if it's not a one-time thing, so they don't get to do it forever, they have to renew it.
Correct.
So for everybody out there, not just yourselves, but if you're aware of an Airbnb in your neighborhood that's an issue, you should definitely call and raise that concern, because when it comes up for renewal, if there's a paper trail, if you will, it'll be important to know that. So important to track those kinds of things.
Alderman
This is
Fisk?
our first experience, so this is educational too.
And we're glad you're here to tell us about it, to talk about it. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support holding this over, but in the copy of the letter that went out to neighbors, it looks like the applicant has asked any neighbor who has any questions to contact him. Were you able to do that? Did you talk to
Well,
them?
actually, we're sort of surprised and disappointed because Steve has been a friend in the neighborhood, and two other people are missing right now who are even closer to him and couldn't make it. And we're disappointed that he couldn't just come to us and tell us. And I know you're trying to be professional, Steve, but it's just really a disappointment that we couldn't really have a good discussion about it.
Well, my hope is that everyone can use the time between these meetings to get together and listen to your concerns. We can't do that here, but, and I don't know whether he's here tonight, but if you can, okay, you all can get together and talk about it, but I do support the holdover.
Okay. Alderman Rainey?
I would like to have the applicant come to the microphone and tell us how long he's been operating and why he didn't contact his neighbors. I mean, these seem like people who are his friends.
Yes, we are friends.
And what's why the big surprise?
Well, I started Airbnb in June of this year and called the city of Evanston to find out, is there a permitting process for Airbnb? And was told that this vacation rental ordinance, which was put in place in 2013, would be the process that they would use to approve it. So I was sent a letter for 50 neighbors and then did send that out. It was to be heard in P&D on September 25th, but apparently there was a postponement, so the city graciously sent out another letter, another notice to the neighbors, the same 50 folks, and that's why we're here tonight. So.
Well, I think that the committee is urging you to sit down with your neighbors and discuss their concerns.
I would be happy
before our next meeting in 2 weeks, and perhaps you all can come to some better understanding of what the proposal is and quiet the minds of your neighbors.
Sure.
Okay. So
I'll make a motion to hold.
Second.
All right. This is held here in the committee for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
All right.
So I
thank
come
you.
back in 2 weeks?
You come back in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone can come back in 2 weeks and discuss it. All right. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That item is held. So next we have item P2. The first, the speaker that we have is Rodney Green.
Oh, there he is. He's unconscious.
Oh. Okay. Anyone else? Who's looking to? Joshua. Okay. While we're waiting for Mr. Green to come forward, could Joshua Hooper? Yes. All right. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joshua Huppert. I live at 2630 Crawford, which is pretty much across the street from 2628 Grosse Pointe, the corner lot. I actually sent a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals about the parking, so I'm assuming you guys have that and I don't have to repeat. The parking is really bad there already. But since this proposed Nix has been talked about all summer, they've been saying, the people promoting it have been saying they are in discussions with Sarkis Cafe about getting to use their Sarkis's parking lot, which from the beginning didn't sound right because the one existing Nick's restaurant, their peak hours are 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Sarkis peak hours are 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Sarkis, any day that the local high schools are closed, Sarkis, their lot is full, their customers are parked illegally all over the neighborhood. So they don't have enough parking already, but they've been there 50 years and they're not asking for a permit. I realize that the zoning requirement is like almost no parking, but they're also asking for several special use permits and zoning variations. And they have not done anything to show that they have parking. They've got a plan for a very nice looking but large building on a lot that's not that big. And whenever the question comes up, maybe your restaurant is too big for the lot, they say, well, we already bought the lot. Well, that was their choice. They didn't check on the permission first. They bought the lot. Fine. They're talking about up to 35 seats and 4 parking spaces. And then they finally, a few days ago, produced, I think you've seen, what they call an agreement for parking with Sarkis Cafe. But there are a few problems. The first one is there's nothing there to show that Sarkis has any rights over that parking lot. And I know that when neighbors complain about the trash from the parking lots, Sarkis says it's not their lot, it's CVS's lot. So they've been asked, I'm pretty sure, by our aldermen in the city to produce proof that they have some rights, and they have not come up with anything. Secondly, the agreement is not signed by all parties, at least the copy that's in the packet is not signed. So it wouldn't be valid anyway. And thirdly, it says it can be revoked at any time. So I really think that that agreement is just a trick to get the city to give them permission, and then the day after they got permission, it will be revoked. It doesn't have to be formally revoked. There just won't be any parking for Nick's in the lot. So I would ask you not to give them permission.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Mr. Green?
Well, to be honest with you, I think I signed up for P3 and that too. I should have missed, I think I made a mistake on that.
Okay. All right.
So I'll come back for P3.
Okay. I'm sorry you had to walk all this way. Okay. All right. Let's get to item P2, which is ordinance 88017, granting a special use for a type 2 restaurant, Nick's Organic Fast Food, a drive-through, active ground floor use, and major zoning relief at 2628 Grosse Pointe Road. Alderman Sufferton.
Sure. In light of the parking situation, I'd ask that nobody support this. The whole time since our first meeting, the issue was the lack of off-street parking. Their agreement that they have with Sarkis a lot, I appreciate that they're willing to pave Sarkis lot and create 6 new spots, but there's nothing to show that they have any permission from the owner of the lot to use it. And that's an issue. It's been clear from the beginning that off-street parking for their employees and customers is a problem there. And I'll ask them what they want to do. Do you want us to just hold this, or do you want us to vote? And if we're going to vote, I'm going to ask that it not receive a second and that nobody give it a favorable vote.
I have one other alderman, Alderman Fisk.
Was it moved yet?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. Who's?
I'll move introduction.
Okay, but he doesn't want a second. I just.
Well, we can't have a discussion if
we
we
can't
don't have a
discuss
motion,
unless it's moved.
So if we can move it for introduction and then we can vote no. If
That
you'd
would
like
be
us
my
to.
preference.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Okay. So
they haven't met the one request that the neighborhood's had of them. So.
Okay. So
Deal.
is there a second so that we can actually discuss this? Would one of you please second?
I will second it.
Okay. Alderman Fisk then, and then
Okay.
Alderman Wilson.
Well, this is not something that I can support. I was actually, when I was reading the packet, I was extremely concerned about the use, the intensity of the use. The fact that there are going to be semi-trailer trucks delivering to the site, I don't think is appropriate, given the neighborhood and access. We had. I just don't think it fits into the neighborhood, so I'll be voting no on it.
Right. Alderman Wilson?
And I can see the obvious parking issues. It looks like it is a primarily, at least it's intended to be a drive-through business for the most part. That's the way it looks to me. I hesitate to just say no out of the box. I mean, you know, I know that I understand you've been working with them to try to come up with a solution on the parking stuff, but you know, in view of the tone of the committee, you know, maybe there is something they can do to come up with a solution. I think that it had 30-some tables planned, or seating for 30-some.
35 seats.
35 seats. Okay, so that's.
I mean, here's the thing: the neighborhood, not crazy about it, but I think everyone was all right with everything except for the customers using street parking, employees using street parking. That's been clear from the beginning. You know, the concept is fine, but without an enforceable parking agreement, I can't support it. And I've been clear about that from the beginning.
All right. I mean, maybe this warrants a hold in the committee to see if they come up with something that's acceptable. I see your point on.
It's up to them.
Yeah. Well, it's up to us to hold it if we want.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, like, what I'm saying is I'm not chasing them away, but without the enforceable parking agreement, this isn't going to happen.
Do we have someone representing the applicant here?
Could I ask
Would you like to come up to the podium?
Melissa, Alderman Nguyen, may I ask a question?
One second, we have Alderman Rainey here.
Of Alderman Suffredin. Sure. Alderman Suffredin, are there conditions under which an enforceable parking agreement can be crafted?
You guys tell me. I haven't. I mean, you have a revocable sublease with Sarkis. What's the story?
Would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Ben Britson. I'm CEO of Nix Organic.
Okay.
We worked really hard to obtain this parking agreement. I'm working with her attorney now.
Her? Who's her?
Marla, the owner of Sarkis.
But Marla doesn't own the lot.
Correct.
So it's not an enforceable agreement unless the owner of the lot says it's fine. It's a sublease that can be terminated at any time by someone who may or may not have the ability to sublease it to you.
True, but we're not, it's not in exchange for any money. She's basically just granting us access to the lot.
But if
just as if we were a customer.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's not satisfactory to me or the neighbors. That's the problem. You need an enforceable agreement. And if you want to hold it and find that either with Sarkis or CVS or another parking lot somewhere, I mean, I'm not trying to chase you away. I think it's a great concept. I think, you know, you've worked to overcome a lot of the challenges, but this one hasn't been overcome. It's too early to be here right now.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where does Starbucks and Subway and the lot and that strip, where do their employees park?
Let me ask a question. What does that have to do with what you and I are talking about?
Because their lot is extremely small, and there's 3 businesses there.
Right. I don't understand your point. We've talked the entire time about that you need to have off-street parking for your employees.
Which we do.
No, you don't. So you can restripe the lot as agreed, right? And I appreciate your creative problem solving here, right? That you're going to get 6 more spots out of the lot. Sarkis could say, you know what? No, we don't want you to use these spots. We'll take them. Thank you for that, though.
Well, I've taken precautionary measures, and now I'm working with her attorney.
But what are they? They're not legally binding.
I have to dish out another $2,000 to get an addendum to the agreement to say.
But how do I know that she has the right to lease out what she's leasing to you? That's what I'm saying.
Well, she's not leasing to us. There's no money. There's no exchange. There's
Under what arrangement does she have access to the lot? Who owns the lot?
Well, she's subleasing it from CVS.
Well, I think.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sure.
No, I think that this issue is not ready for us to.
It's premature for you to be here, and I'm not trying to chase you away, but you don't have the parking thing locked down. That's the issue.
Okay,
per code, we do, but because a resident is concerned.
A lot of residents are concerned.
There's off-street parking. There's parking everywhere.
Right, residential parking, and that's the thing. We talked about this from the beginning.
Crawford's not a residential street. There's 6 spots.
Would you prefer that we do the vote right now? We could do the vote. What I'm suggesting is that we hold off. But if you want to do the vote right now, we can do the vote.
Alderman Suffredin, Alderman Rusiman.
Thank you.
Like to speak.
I move that we hold this until you have a clear parking agreement.
Okay, till next meeting.
Until next meeting.
Okay, I'd second that motion.
Thank you.
So
okay, so this
give you
item
guys
is
a chance
now,
to get that stuff in order.
Yeah, this will be held here in this committee until the next committee meeting, which is in 2 weeks. And I think you should sit down with Alderman Suffredin in person and have him explain to you why it's very, very important that you have an enforceable agreement with the actual owner of or the person who controls the lot. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to P3. And first, we're going to make our way down this list. And I have my timer here. So let's all try to stay, because I think I would like to say to all of you that all of us up here have read everything. We have watched everything. We have talked to everyone who has tried to get in touch with us. We've gone to many meetings. So we appreciate your coming out tonight very much. We would like to hear from you briefly, and then we would like to deliberate on this and ask questions of the developer and also the citizen group. So to the extent that someone else says something that you agree with and you'd like to take your name off the list, we would be very happy to do that for you. Okay, first person is Rich Cahan.
Hi, my name is Richard Cahan. I'm a member of the board of the Interfaith Action of Evanston, an association of 42 Evanston communities of faith and spirit. We recently received a packet of information that outlines a proposal from the developer that calls for the construction of 15 affordable housing units at the Sherman Avenue site. We believe this proposal is faithful to the 2016 Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. 15 downtown units is a start in the city's effort to create more affordable housing. Interfaith Action of Evanston is neither in support nor against the proposed development. We focus on the developer's responsibility under the ordinance. We are pleased that the developers have responded to the ordinance, and we applaud the city's effort to come up with a negotiated agreement. We believe this agreement, which amounts to more than $5 million, shows the value of the new ordinance, but we recognize that the ordinance should be carefully studied to be certain that it encourages the construction of affordable housing units instead of encouraging the paying of fees,
Thank you,
Interfaith
Mr.
Action
Cahan.
of Evanston, it's my last sentence.
Okay.
Would like to be part of that effort to make the ordinance stronger and more effective.
Thank you. Okay. Steve Cohen, and then after Steve Cohen, Jennifer Grandy and Aaron Rosen. And after Aaron Rosen will be Rick Lynn and Hans Mickelson. Go ahead.
Hello, Council. I'm going to confine my remarks just to the perspective of someone living in the middle of all this construction. I bought into the condo at 1570 Elmwood, had a bird's eye view of 1571 Maple going up, saw a 10-month loss of access to Elmwood Street, both pedestrian and vehicular. It was, on a global scale, perhaps a minor inconvenience. But now I want to transpose that to, 1450 Sherman. That is not some minor street that only the inhabitants of the street know about. Where, I see there are 7 restaurants there that I frequent. I can't believe from the pictures that I've seen that some of them are not going to have to close. I see a lot of chaos. And I don't have much faith in the city's ability to manage all that chaos. And I see more buildings going up, and it just concerns me. And I guess with time being short, I'll cut it off here.
Thank you very much. Next is Jennifer Grandy.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Grandy, and I'm a homeowner on the 1500 block of Maple. That's roughly 1,000 feet from the proposed building, and I'm here to voice my support for this development in my neighborhood. Several commentators on this project here and before at the Planning Commission will note how downtown Evanston has changed in the past decade. I can't speak to that change. I wasn't here for it. However, I can speak to why my husband and I came here in the first place. We purchased our home in downtown Evanston a year and a half ago because of the vibrant, walkable downtown and the proximity to public transit. However, here, like anywhere, economic vibrancy does not happen in a vacuum. We need people to sustain it. Several business owners publicly, specifically Prairie Moon, Pete Miller's, Boatwood, and Lulu's and Taco Diablo have spoken to the need for residential development in the area. Now, I grew up in Oak Park. The Albion folks were fairly familiar with it, and I know that 10 years ago, that downtown was a ghost town. for years it was a ghost town because of the lack of development.
And for 10 more seconds.
And now, I mean, it's not because of more development. I realize there's no magic bullet, however, and to fix economic development. However, Inertia succeeds 100% of the time in keeping the status quo. As a homeowner and resident of downtown Evanston, I urge this committee to continue the mission and think forward and to continue with economic development in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rick Lynn, oh, excuse me, Aaron Rosen, and then Rick Lynn, and then Hans Mikkelsen.
Good evening. My wife and I are homeowners in downtown Evanston. We live 1 block west of the proposed Albion development, and we want to speak in favor of the proposal. To do so, I think it may be useful to talk a little bit about our lifestyle, and I do promise to make it relevant. We own an apartment in a multi-unit building. It means a little extra noise, but it keeps our energy costs significantly lower. We share a single car that we use 2 or 3 times a week. We walk or take public transportation to almost everything. We bought an apartment in downtown Evanston because it was consonant with our values. We believe in vibrant, walkable communities. We believe it takes a critical mass of people to support the businesses and other activities that make communities vibrant and walkable. We believe in public transportation and ride sharing and biking because they are cheaper and environmentally responsible. And we believe in multi-unit housing and dense urban cores as general principles, since the alternative is Houston, or worse, Schaumburg. We believe these things and we live by these principles, and we are not alone. You know, they like to say that Evanston's a progressive town with forward-looking values, and I think that's largely true. And I think the truth of the matter is that cities are growing, changing, and thriving, or they're dying.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Rick.
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Rick Lynn. Council members, thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. I was raised in Evanston. I went to Oakton Grammar School, Chute Junior High, and Evanston Township High School. While growing up in Evanston, we went to downtown frequently. When we went downtown, we went to Tom Thumb, which is no longer there. We bought our bell bottoms at Sea Leagues, which is no longer there. And we bought our gifts at Kaler's, which is also no longer there. Kaler's, as in many other city areas within the Chicago area, why aren't they here? They don't feel that there's enough economic benefit to the area. The new generation, both millenniums as well as seniors, and I'm on the senior side, are looking for a new balance between life, work, and play. The Albion project provides the design for the new generation with great features, environmental friendly, transportation convenient, and the design that allows enough space in an apartment to live comfortable and have all the amenities that one needs. Albion has shown that they will be a great neighbor. Members of the council, it is clear that Albion is working hard and wants to be in Evanston. You should embrace this commitment and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Hans Mikkelsen. Then after Mr. Mikkelsen is Say Mikkelsen. Then Tammy Andrew and Max Overholt. Go ahead.
Hey, Hans Mikkelsen. I live on Elmwood, a couple hundred yards away from the proposed building, in one of the historic neighborhoods. And so if I need to change something on the outside of my house, I actually have to come and get permission for that, which I understand, and I'm good with that, right? But when you look at this building, which is nestled in between a bunch of this historic buildings, it's absolutely hideous to look at, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't think it represents at all any sort of transition. I think it's going to be very shuddering, jarring change. And I also think that those of us who are talking about that, the 2,000 people who have signed on at least, represent a considerable more amount of tax revenue than this is going to bring in. If we think that this isn't going to get developed with the current laws, then I think the thing to do would be to properly address the laws in a way that everybody agrees with, and then move on from there, rather than just pushing the laws to the side.
10 more seconds, please.
Finally, I do also have a worry, because my understanding, and you'll pardon my lack of technical stuff here, is that geographically speaking, the land here is soft. And I worry that there's not going to be enough seismic checking. These old houses that are around there could suffer a lot from that.
Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Say Mikkelsen? Yes. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your first name.
I'm that dude's wife. I thank you for your time. I just wanted to state that I'm kind of the opposite of an earlier recent transplant here. We moved from Chicago about a year and a half ago. We specifically wanted a lot of the wonderful character, but still vibrant town that Evanston is. And, you know, I think it is already quite vibrant. I know that we need to always move forward and consider future, but I don't think it's being stuck in the past to appreciate what we do have. There's an awful lot of places with a lot of glass buildings in this world, and they are shooting up pretty quickly. And I'm not quite sure that that is what serves the beauty of this town. I think the people who, like me, who actually all of my friends from Chicago who come to visit, are so enchanted and also concerned about exactly this. Do we have a quality town that cares about the character? And I think we do here, and now can do this in smart ways as opposed to just slapping up something that is just not a part of what we have currently. Thank you very much.
Next is Tammy Andrew, then Max Overholt, and Joyce Wierzlocki.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My comments are a little different. I was involved with the Goldberg property long before this project ever came to fruition. And Mrs. Goldberg tried many different ways to add value to that property. I was an investment sales broker. I priced it for her. There was no way she could get the return on her dollar for what she'd invested in the property. And I think it's 1508 is completely gutted, so anybody that is going to go in and want to lease that space is going to have a significant cost with probably a very low level, if any, return. So at this point in time, the buildings are in a state of condition that you either tear them down or you just limp along like it currently is. And we have a builder here or a developer here that's willing to take the risk and put a beautiful new building up, walkable, everything that everybody wants these days, and adds a lot of money to your coffers, which from your earlier meetings I think you need. So I would think about that.
Thank you. Next is Max.
I yield my time.
Thank you. Joyce.
Good evening, chairs of the committee. I'm a condo owner here in Evanston. I still have a concern about the alley for this new project. Is it wide enough for two vehicles? One the size of a moving truck or delivery truck, and if there were a fire called, can a fire truck pass in the alleyway of the base of this project? With the megacity creating density. A lot of this is being approved by some people. Who's paying for the extra firefighters, their equipment? The fire truck staffing allegedly now is at 3, maximum is 4. Police officers on foot or bicycle may be required. Again, are the homeowners paying for this? I think we need to factor in the density of the people coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have, last name is Corella. Okay, and then after that is Rodney Green. Then after that is Andrew Fisher, Carl Lemaine, and Ray Friedman. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm here to speak on behalf of Pete Miller's Steakhouse. I fully support this development. We've experienced decrease in revenue year over year for the last 3 years due to foot traffic. It's been hard. There are certain evenings that have been fairly good for us, but majority of the evenings we've seen a steady decline, and that's due to the decline of traffic in that area. It hurts business. It's hard to reinvest in business when there isn't that foot traffic that we are used to and accustomed to. We want to be a great business for the community. What's great for the community is great for business, and what's great for business is great for the community. I fully support this development. The bottom line is we need more people in that area. More people drive more revenue for us and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Rodney?
was on the list, but you didn't call.
I'm Andrew Fisher.
He said he forgo his time now and he'll speak at the council.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fisher, you're next. Okay. And then after that is Carl Lemaine and Ray Friedman.
Hi, I'm Andrew Fisher. I live at 1580 Sherman, just less than a block north of this development. If it gets built, according to a roundtable editorial by Matt Dickerson, the current Albion 298 unit proposal only has parking for 1/3 of the zoning requirement for a building that size. To meet the parking zoning, we would either have to build a huge building of 3 times the parking, or reduce the residential units by 1/3. I think we would definitely prefer the second one. And with proposed arithmetic, that would mean from the current residential tower of 11 floors, it would have to be cut down to only 4 floors for a total height of 9 floors. You'd still have the 5 floors on the ground thing for the park and all the retail and
Mr. Fisher, your
parking.
time is up.
Here are all the advantages of this. It will still increase Evanston's tax revenue. It stays within Evanston's zoning requirements. It will still increase customers to the
I need you to wrap it up.
Construction will still clean up toxic waste from a former gas station under Evans, and there'll be no additional parking to strain the parking, and the reduced height will greatly reduce the wind tunnel and reduce the shadow on Holiday Inn, and provide a much nicer transition from Rotary down to the lower buildings to the south.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next is Carl Lemaine and Ray Friedman.
Good evening. My name is Carl Lemaine. I'm going to try to keep it under 1 minute.
I appreciate it.
I live at 822 Colfax Street in Evanston, in the First Ward. My wife and I moved to Evanston about 2 years ago. The main reason we moved here was because of the culture and architecture that Evanston offers. You know, the old buildings and everything. I think that's what makes the charm of Evanston. New developments are always hard on the community and tend to divide neighbors, as we can see tonight. I understand that there's a need to increase revenue, but as a business owner, I know it's important to focus on our strength. And Evanston's strength is not building high-rises. Evanston's strength is its diverse community, the 2 great college campuses we have, safety, and its rich history enshrined
10 more seconds.
In the house and building around town. By approving this high-rise, you will sell a few expensive condominiums, but you will lose residents who appreciate what Evanston has to offer today. And
thank you.
That's it.
Okay, Ray Friedman, then
if it's okay, I'd like to speak in front of the whole council.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Just come back. Next is Rohit. Thank you. Then after Rohit is Thomas Wesley, then Sari Caddison Shapiro, then Thomas Klein and Junod. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Alderman. Rohit, like rowboat, hit a ball.
Okay.
So I'm the one of the owners of Tommy Nevins as well as Pete Miller's. And the one thing that I wanted to talk about, actually there's a couple things. We put this location up for sale voluntarily. And we did that for several reasons, one of which was declining revenue year over year to the point where now we're struggling. And we're at a point where the location is, obviously we sold it to Albion. In doing the site remediation, we found out that the soil was contaminated, and that meant that the only way for us to really sell this property is to someone who's going to develop it. And this
10 more
development.
seconds.
Okay, sorry. And this development is very integral, not only to us personally, but to the city of Evanston. We will drive more revenue to our other stores and to other businesses, and I think that this is what's best for Evanston. And speaking for Tommy Nevins, we're about to close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Wesley, and after Mr. Wesley is Caddison Shapiro. Go ahead.
Council members, I'll do an abbreviated version. I believe the addition of 286 apartments and some 350 additional residents in the downtown corridor can only help the ongoing revitalization of our downtown neighborhood. These additional new residents will use services, restaurants, shops, etc. To quote Dan Kelch, owner of Lulu's, Taco Diablo, and Five and Dime, quote, each person's going to eat close to 1,100 meals a year, representing that many additional opportunities for downtown restaurants to increase their business, unquote. By my math, that means almost 385,000 business opportunities for restaurant owners each year. Add this to the additional retail business opportunities used by our new neighbors for goods and services, and this is a significant boost to the downtown economy. The property tax is estimated to be $1 million annually, over $750,000 more than current. Does Evanston move forward or simply stay in place? I believe we as a city should move forward into the 21st century with thoughtful and beautifully designed development that adds to the vitality of our city.
10 more seconds.
We should follow the steps of Oak Park, whose village board just last Monday approved a similar Albion development. To quote Oak Park Mayor, quote, I know that I am not in love with high-rises. I am in love with Oak Park. At the end of the day, I believe that we have a project that is good for the village of Oak Park, unquote. I, Thomas Wesley, am in love with Evanston and believe that Albion development is good for the city of Evanston.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
There are representatives here from Evanston Township High School for a proclamation for YAMO. Are you here? Anyone here from Evanston Township High School? Okay, they're in the back. Thank you. We were going to, Mayor Haggerty's going to give them their proclamation a little early, so they don't have to wait until the.
Do you want it to do it right now?
No. Keep going.
Okay. Right. Understood. Okay. All right. Okay. Yalmo, we appreciate you. Okay. Sorry. Is there someone? Yes. Hi. Sorry. Then. Or Sari, my apologies. Then Thomas Klein, Junad, and then Sue Holbert.
My name's Sari Caddison Shapiro. I live probably as close to this development as anyone could live. On the corner of Lake and Elmwood, I have a kind of bright-colored house, and people have told me that it makes them smile, and people were leaving town and saying that they really loved going by my house, and that was nice. But I hope that we follow the city plan that was adopted in 2009 and paid a lot of money for, because this is supposed to be a transitional block going into the residential block, which is right near it. Every person on my block who has lived here on that block for at least 35 years, there's four or five couples here, and they're really concerned, not only about the building going up, but the construction of the building.
10 more seconds.
And also, if all zoning laws are just thrown out, our street, Elmwood, all the way down, is susceptible to having developers put up high-rises there, because it's not in the Lakeshore Historic District, and it's not in the Ridge Historic District. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. It should be one or the other. Okay. Mr. Klein?
Hello. Members, greetings. Despite reading over 500 pages, numerous citizens have attended all the hearings, including the first two DAPR hearings and the to Plan Commission hearings, have talked to developers, have talked to citizens nearby, have talked to small businessmen nearby. These are my personal notes for one of the DAPR meetings, August 2nd, 2017. I would like to send that to the members so that you can compare it with the packet that you have before you, which I submit to you is incomplete and does not include comments such as the comments made by a small businessman who said that this large-scale development, which would almost certainly cause conditions qualifying for a nuisance case in Illinois tort
Mr.
law
Klein, 10 more seconds.
by adjoining property owners. His statement was after over a year and a half of tearing up the streets by the city for another project, another 18 months to tear up for a 286-unit development.
Time is up.
Where only 93 units should go, would almost certainly put a number of small businessmen out of
Thank you.
business. Thank you.
Mr. Ritzke? Then after Mr. Ritzke is Sue Holbert.
Junaid Ritzke, 33-year resident. I haven't been involved in this issue much, but I will state I was at the meeting where you talked about planning. There is no plan here in Evanston. The Tribune wrote an article, 10, 15 years ago about planning here. I responded and said the city needs to do urban design. They actually published my comments in the magazine in the next issue. I had to find it. The bottom line is you had a meeting at 6 o'clock, no one attended, about planning. There is no plan in the downtown. The city needs to build a model, have models built in 3D of the downtown, looking at the different densities and what would be built here, not just this project, but other projects. Just like the budget is messed up, the planning process is messed up. I don't believe you had people in the department that have any leadership to lead it. It's a mess here. You need to take control again of something that's a mess. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holbert?
Hello, my name is Sue Holbert, and I have more questions than answers, and I'm not an expert at all. It just seems to me that we have lots of development in Evanston, and then we have lots of empty spaces. And we get more and more little shops downtown, not with no one in them, empty storefronts and so forth. I don't understand why we get more density, but it leads to less downtown traffic, and how if you're going to get more density, you're going to have more traffic, and that's going to help everybody. I don't understand why this building needs to be so big and out of scale, and I don't understand why I've lost the last one. But anyway, a lot of things I don't understand. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Barbara White, Brooke Harper, and Lee Katz. Sarah? Sarah? Here.
I can use that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to leapfrog over many things I was going to say.
Could you speak a little more directly into it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Barbara White, and I live within 1,000 feet of this building going up. And I came to Evanston in 1961, and I've been here about 55 years. I've seen many changes in those years, and to keep the city vibrant and growing. And I really feel a personal pride in living in Evanston. I always have. But I really am concerned. I have so many concerns about this building, or about all the developments coming forward. If the zoning laws are allowed to be overridden, it just seems like there'll be a lot of continuing overrides. It would set a precedent. So I'm asking this council to slow this train down in order to have time to assess more clearly what could lie ahead for Evanston's long-term future. I think the brakes should be applied. There are tempting carrots presented by the developers to fill our spaces and add to our coffers, and they're quick fixes, perhaps, but they could do damage in the long run that cannot be immediately foreseen without further thought and study.
About
And
10 more seconds, please.
I think it's the responsibility of the members of this council to thoroughly analyze what we have before us. Your decision will be a lasting one, and does it fit with the spirit of the town that I have loved for almost 6 decades? In my opinion, it does not. Thank you.
Brooke Harper. And after Brooke is Lee Katz.
Hi, my name is Brooke Harper. I'm a recent transplant to Evanston, like some of the other people who've spoken. And some of the things that I have loved on coming to Evanston are the wildlife, the trees, the wonderful air quality in Evanston, and the beautiful architecture. And while I support sustainable development in downtown, to the extent that this plan is going to be reconsidered or there are going to be questions asked about it, I think that the council should question the extent of parking and number of cars that are being added to the downtown core. In the 2009 plan, the city said that we ought to be increasing emphasis on transit and development that is driving additional use of transit, and even said that the plan recommended and recognized that the city should do more to encourage transit use, including changing the parking ratios for new development that's near train stations. This building, to the extent that it goes in, will be right on top of 2 CTA Purple Line stations, close to the Davis Metro stop. And the city could do a lot to reduce congestion in the downtown core by reducing the number of parking spaces that are being added to this building, and encourage trends that are already taking place in Evanston, where people come to the downtown, want to have a walkable community and not traffic congestion and noise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Lee Katz. Then after Lee is Irv Chokol.
Got to go fast, right?
Yeah.
I'm a 39-year Evanston resident. I was a retailer on Davis Street for 40 years. I've been in business in Evanston for 46 years. I'm in favor of the city's relief from what currently seems a dead-end situation for Tommy Nevins and the adjacent property. I'm in favor of housing that will allow 15 or so families or individuals an opportunity to stay in Evanston. I'm in favor of millions of dollars in property tax and fees to our city. I'm in favor of the Albion project. There's been discussion here about gentrification. Our home, visible from this window, has in 39 years we have lived here gone from the largest house within a block in every direction to a house of average or smaller size. The newest houses within our immediate neighborhood, formerly mixed race area, have almost no people of color, and single-family homes are now sold for over $1.5 million. To those looking to preserve a storybook Evanston, we need to realize that the changes you fear are in our neighborhoods and not in our downtown development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Irv. Last name is Chocol. And then after that, we have Christopher Kruger and Don Schollenberg.
Members of the committee, my name is Irv Chokol. I've been a resident in Evanston for more than 40 years. There seems to be a concern that we maintain a reputation of being friendly to developers. This Albion development proves that we have that reputation, or they wouldn't ask for such extreme variances. If this project is approved in its current form, our reputation will not only be as friendly, but as pushovers. If Albion offers changes now, we would like some time to review those changes and postpone any kind of a vote if there are changes. I noticed this white model here. That's probably there to compare the proposed building to other downtown buildings.
10 more seconds.
But it misses the point. We have to look at that building in the location that it's designed for, not compared to other downtown buildings. It's supposed to be a transitional area.
Time, Mr. Chokol.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Kruger.
For the record, I object to 1-minute comment on this $90 million building. I've heard a lot recently about FOIA victims. So I want to talk about FOIA victims. And what I want to talk about is 1,600 people that signed a petition against this development that I filed a FOIA on behalf of my client on September 13th. The city held it for a week, and then the law department summarily denied our FOIA in its entirety. We resubmitted a second, that's 636. We submitted a second streamlined FOIA containing search firms. That was held by a week, summarily denied from the city. After that, we reduced the FOIA by 2/3. And again, today, we were summarily denied by the city. So there's 1,600 people that want information. We will get the information, whether we get it in this forum or we get it in another forum, that will be fine. But there's nothing hid that will not be uncovered. I think that's in a book somewhere. So we intend to find out. We intend to find out all the proceedings and do this in the daylight and transact government in the daylight and stop scapegoating FOIA people.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. Don.
My name's Don Schallenberger. I live at 1864 Sherman. I'm not here to speak for or against the Albion project. What I am concerned about is an overall project on zoning and height here in Evanston. This is something I really think that the city council needs to look at. I mean, Evanston it's a city within itself. Although it adjoins the city of Chicago, it's not a bedroom community like Wilmette or Winnetka. It is also not a community like Schaumburg or Oak Brook. So but it is a small city unto itself. But there needs to be some overall project, particularly in regards to the downtown area, which does not seem to exist at the current time, about a specific height. I mean, we're talking about this building, and we're also talking about one of over 30 stories a few blocks away. And I think before these things are taken up completely, I think the city of Evanston needs to think about a height and how many stories, and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Marilyn Ruiz. Is it Wendy Pollock? Someone whose last name I believe is Strom, Bob Strom. We'll go with those three.
Good evening, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Marilyn Ruiz. I'm a resident of downtown Evanston and a resident of Evanston for over 42 years. You're talking about my neighborhood. I live at Sherman and Davis. And people, I don't think I have heard one person here speak about the residents of downtown Evanston as a neighborhood. This is my place. This is where I shop. I go to the dentist, the dry cleaners, and all of the food establishments. I want more density. I want all of those small stores to stay exactly where they are and to grow. I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I've had several businesses of brick and mortar stores in Evanston. I'm a co-founder of the Main Street Merchants Association, and I've also been Businesswoman of the Year for North Shore in 1995. I basically love Evanston. I want to stay here. I want everything to thrive. I live in downtown Evanston because of its walkability, my neighbors, the culture. I want it to thrive. I am supporting the Albion project. I want to explore my Albion neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Wendy.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Pollock. I live at 1410 Oak Avenue. It's about 3.5 blocks away from this proposed development, and I'm joining those who are strongly opposed to it. I want to say I'm not at all opposed to density in urban settings. I've lived in cities my entire life. I walk, I take my bike, And yeah, we need density downtown. It's good for the environment. It's makes for vibrant downtowns. But this is just too big. It's out of scale. It's inhuman. I have to say, it's really ugly too. I have to say that. I mean, I don't want it in my neighborhood. But aside from that, the process has been really questionable. If we have a plan, as others have mentioned, how did we end up here with something that is so out of keeping with the plan? So I think that also really needs serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Hi, my name is Robert Strahm. I'm the owner and operator of Prairie Moon Restaurant in downtown Evanston. This development directly affects us, and I want to come out and tell everybody without question, we are in favor of this development. We have been in a situation in our space for some time now, directly adjacent to 2 empty lots, which will need development. Albion has come to us and came to us in July of last year, along with the Goldberg family, and we have worked out a scenario in which we will come back into the base development, and I guarantee everybody in Evanston that we will be part of this community. We will make sure that the base level, that Prairie Moon's identity will maintain. We will be your local. We always have been. We will continue to be so. I've lived here my whole life, 1963. I've been working in restaurants here since 1985. And in my opinion, I think the building is tasteful, and I come out in full support of it.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Is this Alan Ramsier? And then the last person will be Adam Chess.
Hi, I'm Alan Ramsar. I live at 1407 Elmwood, just out of the shadow of this monstrosity that's going up.
Tell us how you really feel.
Elmwood is the is currently, I've been here 20 years, the alternative parking space for the businesses on Sherman and Greenwood and Lake. So I have major concerns about the relative lack of parking that this building is proposing, and have a hard time imagining that with that many units there won't be an overflow of parking on our street. The second concern I have about this project has been referenced earlier, and that's the ad hoc nature of building, where there is or was an existing plan, which Alderman Wilson has pointed out has not been adopted officially, but did have the what I think is a very useful notion of transition from neighborhood like mine, which is definitely a neighborhood, and into a more dense urban center. So
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, our last speaker is Adam Chiss.
Good evening. My name is Adam Chiss. I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward, and I've been pretty much a lifelong resident of Evanston. I oppose the Albion development. I come to this with a very open mind, and I'm for thoughtful development in Evanston. But when the former chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals says, quote, "I cannot recall any building that was as inappropriate for the site proposed as this development," that speaks volumes to me. The building seems totally out of scale for this human scale block. I just don't think it's a thoughtful development for this part of Evanston. I'm also concerned about too many high-end luxury rentals and what it does for Evanston's affordability. And I just think that this development threatens the character of a very unique neighborhood and part of downtown Evanston. So I urge you to be thoughtful about this, and ultimately I oppose the development. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our citizen comment, and now the next step that we're going to take is, first we need to introduce the item for discussion. It's ordinance 103017, special use permit for planned development located at 1450 to 1508 Sherman Avenue in the D4 Downtown Transition District. All those, is there a second for discussion purposes? Good night, Scouts. Thanks for having me. Yes, all right, it's been moved and seconded for discussion purposes. Then why don't we have a presentation first by the development folks? Yes. And then we'll have a presentation by the neighbor organization. Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Donna Pugh. I'm a partner in the law firm of Foley and Lardner on behalf of the applicant Albion. You're going to hear a little more about this, but I just wanted to emphasize the number of changes that have been made, all less relief that Andrew will walk you through, but there have just been numerous reductions in height, units, additional parking, and I really do want you to know that how much effort has gone into that. Now, I just, again, wanted to note that the staff supports it, the Plan Commission supports it. You've heard repeatedly how this will expand the tax base, and we urge you to support the proposal. With us this evening are representatives of Albion, HSA, which is our architect, Wolf Landscape, and KLOA, the traffic planner. At this time, I'd like to introduce the president of Albion, Jason Kane.
Good evening. Thank you for your service as an alderman. I know, as we sit and listen to everyone's concerns, it's and I've heard you guys go pretty late in the night, so I know we appreciate it. Just a little bit about us. My name is Jason Kane. I'm the president of Albion. We're a Chicago-based real estate company. All we do is apartments. We don't do condos. We don't do senior housing. We don't do student housing. All we do is apartments. We are a part of Village Green. We are sister companies. Village Green manages about 38,000 units across the United States, but the vast majority of them are located right here in the Midwest, and including we manage about 7,500 units here in the Chicagoland area. And then a little bit about us. So we're wholly owned by a company called Compatriot Capital. They're located in Dallas. They are a subsidiary of a company called Sammons Enterprises. Sammons is a very large company with assets approaching $86 billion. What that says is, we have the financial capabilities of putting this project together, and if we were approved to be able to move on with the project in short order. So I'd like to bring up Andrew Ewell, who's going to talk a little bit about the project specifically.
Thanks. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go as quick as I can. I know we're on a...
You all have about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to see me here, and then I'm going to hand it off to Paul Alessandro, architect. I'm going to come back to finish off. What I'm going to do here is just reacclimate you with the site. I know you're already familiar with it, but Tommy Nevins is to the far south part of the site. The vacant lot was the former funeral home. Prairie Moon extends its way north. There's a month-to-month lease with a Pilates studio, and then vacant retail and office throughout the rest of the site. So Tommy Nevins and Prairie Moon already spoke to you on behalf of their concerns with the site today, so I'm not going to get too much more into that, as they already briefed you on that. So this next slide here shows you a transitional elevation map. And what we're trying to show you here is from Dempster Street to Church Street. What we're trying to explain is what we're looking at in terms of mass as you get up into the downtown district. Our building is located in the D4 downtown district. It is a downtown district. And what you can see here is that right in front of us is the Holiday Inn, which is 145 feet in height. The top of our roof line is at 165 feet in height. And then as you go north to the Rotary Building, that's 240 feet in height. And that's also demonstrated by the model that's shown there in front of you. So the building itself, we feel, is transitional in nature as you go up to the downtown district, as it's located in a, what happened here? In a downtown district. The next slide here walks through, it's a little bit difficult to understand, but this walks through what is actually the anticipation of the downtown D4 district today. So the anticipation allows a building of 185 feet in height. Now that's inclusive of 40 feet of parking garage. So parking garage in today's zoning law is allowed to be extracted out of the height of that building. So the building technically could be 145 feet of residential plus 40 feet of parking. That allows for 185 feet. We are standing here today asking for a height variance because we do not have 40 feet of parking. So we are asking for 11 feet of height variance from what's allowed at the current location. The underlying zoning allows a project that is at a 6.0 FAR with 93 buildable units today. Those 93 buildable units with the 6.0 FAR would need to be about 2,100 square feet to maximize the FAR on the site today. That project is unfeasible at the moment from a development standpoint and a construction standpoint. It would need to be large-scale condos, which most likely would be 3 and 4 bedrooms in size. And if it were able to be performed, it would need to have full 40-foot setbacks along the full site, as noted on the right-hand side. And if that type of project were able to be built today, we anticipate that the population of that building would be similar to the population of our building today, just based on the fact that you're having 3 and 4 bedroom condo units that would be within the site. So where have we gone? So we started off in a neighborhood group meeting in early May. We started off with a building that was an extra story, 298 units, and it now has been reduced into the PD submittal, and then as of today, down to 286 units. The building height itself has been reduced by 16 feet. We continue to make modifications as we started the project, hearing the concerns of the neighbors and the size of the density. We reduced the scale of the FAR naturally by reducing some of the units out of the building, and we've increased parking. And we've followed and watched closely with the parking ordinance that has been moving its way along City Council, and we think we are pretty close to that today, but we are still asking for some relief. So on the design-related revisions that we've had so far today, they've been really great in nature. They've allowed us the opportunity to have these neighborhood groups. So we had the neighborhood group meeting at Prairie Moon. It was a very packed room. We got to hear a lot of feedback. We've then continued down having some isolated conversations with some local stakeholders, and then we went to 2 DAPR meetings, and we've been through 2 Planning Commission meetings. So along the way, we've heard a lot of comments, and I've tried to incorporate as much feedback as I could. We spent a lot of time originally working on the elevation itself of Sherman Avenue. Modernizing the building. It looked like it was more of a historic building in nature as the way we came out, and we decided with the help of staff and the neighbors to make it a little bit more modern. A big issue from the beginning is we were looking to park the building off Sherman. We thought it was the best benefit is to match where the Holiday Inn's parking garage ingress and egress was. There's a current curb cut at Prairie Moon already today, keeping that in place. And we listened to the neighbors and staff, and they said, no, that's not the right thing to do. It should be in the alley. But now the alley needs to get widened. So we took that upon ourselves to work with council, several different councils, as we couldn't figure out who the actual true owner of that alley is. It was part of both railroad companies, which are very difficult to work with. We've been able to provide title insurance over that alley for the city of Evanston, and we're now recommending making it a one-way, which will include calming measures for people who would be walking by on the Lake Street side. So it's now not worried about 2 ways of traffic. Inclusive, and there was also widening of the alley to allow multiple vehicles to go by. And then we also heard a lot about bird strike, and we've been working really hard with our sustainability and lead consultant to make sure that we can comply with as much of the LEED 55 practice as we can to eliminate bird strikes within the building place without the building looking like a prison. So then here's where we're at today with the rendering of the northeast. And as you can see, we're bordered to the west by both train lines. We're bordered to the east by the Holiday Inn. We're bordered to the north by the downtown district. And to the south of us is a park, Harper Park. It's a cute, calm, small park. And what we decided to do here was to build our own buffer park off of Harper Park, so that the density in the mass didn't feel like it was coming all the way to the street. And that park is about 4,000 square feet in nature. Only up to about 25% of it will be able to be used by the restaurant, so we can dedicate that as park space that's calming. I'm going to hand it over to Paul Alessandro, and he's going to speak a little bit about the architecture of the building.
Thank you. I'm Paul Alessandro with Hartshorn and Plunkett Architecture. Thank you, board members, for allowing us to speak this evening. Hartshorn and Plunkett is a 50-person firm located in the West Loop. We've been around since 1987, and we work primarily in urban infill sites, new construction, mixed-use rehab, specializing in housing of all types. Just some bullet points on the building. I won't read them for you. These are the things that some of them are the comments that Andrew has already made. One of the things that had come up a couple of minutes ago with a question about loading docks. We are providing off alley loading docks so that the alley is never blocked with our loading traffic. Here's the site, as Andrew had alluded to. Our building, if I can get this mouse to work. There we go. Our building is set back 40 feet off of Lake Street and aligns with the Holiday Inn Tower. Our public park at the front is a combination of public park, 25% maximum will be used by the restaurant that is located at the corner. That'll feed out onto the sidewalk. The rest is reserved for public space. Pulling this building back opens up these corner views and allows a safer transition on to Sherman Avenue. Our building then starts at this 40-foot line and then continues back to the back of the property, setting back as it moves north, achieving a 43-foot setback at the northern end. So this setback is about 250 feet of the length of the building. One of the things that we heard from everyone as we were speaking to neighbors and constituent groups was to create a strong retail base that fronts along Sherman and to reinforce the retail district along the street that had been eroded with the vacant buildings and also the vacant lots. Our building then sets back off top of this to create a strong line reinforcing the low-rise retail along the street that is consistent with the low-rise retail further along the avenue. Our site plan, our lobby is in the middle. Our lobby then is directly between the two retail outlets. These two retail outlets will also open up into the lobby. One of the characteristics of an Albion building is that the lobbies are large and open and public spaces, so that somebody who wants to come and grab a bite here but doesn't want to sit in the restaurant for 3 hours can come into our lobby and use the lobby as a place to sit down and do some work. We also have an additional retail spot at the north. Parking at the back, which is all accessed off of the alley. The alley is 14 feet wide, which allows for 2 cars to pass, and then for our loading docks to be recessed from that through alley and pulled completely off the alley in order to keep the alley open in case of any emergency vehicles that need to walk through. As I said, here is the park at the front end and our 40-foot setback and a strip that is dedicated to the restaurant. This is a drawing of the 4th floor, which shows our setback floor. Our setback floor is surrounded by green planted landscape. These units walk directly out to a private deck as well as a public deck that is located at the southern end, as well as our amenity and fitness area. We're also providing an indoor and outdoor dog run on this level against the tracks to keep noise down from the street. This shows our typical floor and our traditional market mix to serve all levels of housing requirements. We have about 33% studios that are in the just under 500 square feet, which is a typical studio size in this market. We're about 50% convertibles and one bedrooms that are averaging somewhere around 700 square feet. And then the rest are in 2 and 3 bedrooms. All of our units are fully equipped with appliances, full-size appliances, washers and dryers, dishwashers, disposals, microwaves. I think there was a comment, again, early on concerned about the size of these units. They could be too small, but we're providing basically full-size appliances for everyone.
You have about 4 or 5 minutes left.
All right. And then our top roof deck amenity. In addition to the decked amenity that's facing south, this is also a co-officing space, so anyone who lives in this building, who works from home, can come up to this amenity level and use this as co-officing space so that they can get out of their apartment if they want to and work together communally with other people. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Ted Wolf, our landscape architect.
How are we advancing the slides here?
Mouse on the down arrow.
Okay. Thanks, Ted Wolf with Wolf Landscape Architecture. I want to talk first about the Pocket Park. We're very excited by this public open space at the south end of the development. It's about 2,700 square feet. We think we've designed a park which, well, it is a park which will be public. We've designed it to be permeable, so it invites people to walk in and to walk through. So we think the through traffic activates and animates it. It'll be shared with about 560 or so square feet of designated commercial seating for the restaurant, and we think that too will animate the park and provide a stakeholder there, which makes it a safer and more busy and more attractive space. It's green, and we've made a commitment to a sculpture or art piece in the park as well. I want to talk briefly then about the public streetscape. On Sherman Avenue, we've got a 9'6" sidewalk. I know sidewalk width is a concern in Evanston on some projects. 9'6", for a point of reference, is maybe a foot less than Michigan Avenue in Chicago. It's an adequate sidewalk. It's a generous sidewalk. It'll accommodate all the pedestrian circulation. The very short sidewalk on the south end is 10 feet wide, more than enough. We're meeting the Evanston streetscape standards with trees and planters, with a low concrete curb to keep the salt out, and the brick pavers that goes around it. So we think this is completely consistent with what your standards are, and it's going to be an attractive, functional streetscape.
So the last few slides here we want to talk about are the public benefits and what's going on, the affordability initiatives and the impacts. From an affordability initiative standpoint, when we started this process, the idea of the project, and it was correlated to us, was the fee in lieu of. That was the way to take the position of the site. Something that Evanston was looking to do. There was some projects in the pipeline, and that was the recommendation at the time going forward. And as we started hearing from the neighbors, and more or less at the Planning Commission meeting, we started hearing the idea of how do we get more affordable units immediately? How do we bring them to the property? And we took a step back for a second and we looked at the evaluation. Each unit in this building costs about $330,000 for us to build. And the fee in lieu of for this particular property would have been $2.9 million. So the equivalent there would be somewhere in the range of 8 to 9 units, would be a fair equivalent in terms of construction cost versus units that would be placed on site. We knew we wanted to go above and beyond that. We wanted to be here. We understand this conversation about affordable housing and workforce housing, and we're standing here today saying we are fully committed to putting 15 affordable units on the site. We think that has a value of around $5 million, but we're not saying we're solving all of the affordability initiatives. We're not standing here telling you that. We're just saying that it's difficult for a developer to do that, especially after a planning commission meeting as a last second, and we're fully committed to that. We're a long-term holder of this asset, and we're fully committed to making sure that we can help start a conversation about the crisis of affordable housing and workforce housing in the community. Something else there, what I think we're going to look to do is waiving move-in fees. So what we're going to do is the top 10 employers of Evanston. We want people from Evanston to live in this community. We're not necessarily saying we're going to go pull all these Chicago residents and bring them here. We want a place where Evanstonians can call home as well. by doing that, we're going to be working with the top 10 employers of Evanston, and we're going to waive all the move-in fees. We're going to create initiatives to try to get them to understand why they could live here, what we can do to help them, try to bring the idea of you can live here, you can stay here. Some of the other site initiatives that we're looking to do, the on-site pocket park, we're contributing money to a general landscaping fund, where that money could be directed by you as the council members to improve public parks. We're looking to take the Harper Park maintenance program off of your rolls. It's easier for us to maintain it. We're already out there. We're already doing the cleanup of the streets and sidewalks and streets every day with our maintenance team. We will enter into some form of a landscaping contract, and we'll have our team making sure that it's pruned, it's cleaned, and it's in an orderly fashion.
Mr. Yule, can you start to wrap it up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll have a public art contribution. The building will be a LEED Silver building at minimum. We are striving to get to LEED Gold. We talked about LEED 55. We will be burying all the utility lines that are around the site for a clean look. We're currently looking at contributing to the Divvy station. We've committed to that. We've committed to car sharing and a transit screen, and we will be giving all of our residents who don't bring cars memberships to Divvy and car sharing so that they have the ability to move around, and also encourage them not to bring a car to the site. We're also contributing to 2 cycles of the CTA Metro Viaduct restoration. We're committed to fully working with the high school, Evanston Township High School. We've already started conversations with Shelley Gates in the geometry and construction class. We're going to be working with her in order to teach classes in the classroom, bring the students to an actual job site, and allow them to see the opportunities of what it's like in construction. And then finally, our impact on the municipal services. We've had this confirmed from staff and from third-party consultants that we are no impact to Public Works. We will not be an impact for the fire department. We are a fully sprinkled building with a fire command center. We will not be a drain on the police department, as we've done an investigation on how many police calls are already going on to the site. We know that will be a reduction. And also, we will be a benefit to the school districts, as SP Friedman has verified that only 15 or less students would be attending schools from our project, and that could include private school as well. Finally, the economic impact of the project is, we did say it's a $90 million project. It will generate about $1 million in property tax revenue. It will generate about $1 million in building permit fees. It will create jobs. We are not asking for a TIF. We are not asking for a tax abatement. We are taking on this full liability ourselves. It's something a developer hasn't been able to do, is stand up in front of a council and say, we don't want any of this. And by the way, we also want to be part of the Affordable Housing Initiative on our own. We haven't been able to do that in the past. It's our first time doing it, and I'm very excited for it. And I just want you guys to know that we are committed to Evanston. We're long-term holders. We're going to be here for the long haul. We want to be part of the fabric of Evanston. I think what we're seeing today is why we want to be here. The conversation on both sides of the argument. It's really important to us, and we're committed to making sure we hire Evanstonians, and we're committed to the cause to help with anything we need to that this council decides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll have the presentation from the community group.
Okay, good evening. My name is Claire Kelly, and I've lived in Evanston for over 45 years. We're here this evening representing over 1,800 people who've signed on to a petition against the Albion proposal. And we're here this evening because we, along with many Evanston residents who care tremendously about our city, have very, very serious concerns about this proposed Texas-based Salmons Albion development. We appreciate being allocated time this evening to present and discuss a few of the very serious issues with this development, so thank you very much for allocating us this time. As you're all aware, many Evanstonians have given up countless hours of time to study and expose important aspects of the Albion development, And we found that this development would undermine our sense of community, undermine fairness in housing for our residents, and would negatively impact the aesthetic appeal of our downtown. Some of our concerns involve zoning issues and variances, fair housing. In an already segregated Evanston, this would only exacerbate segregation. Environmental and lead concerns, negative impact on Evanston's economy, services, and taxes, the negative impact of the quality of living, incompatibility with the design and the scale with regard to our Evanston community. And finally, we also have serious concerns about the process by which city staff and the Plan Commission have recommended this project, and we feel the lack of commitment to fully vet a project of such scale requiring so many variances. Several Evanston members of the Evanston community are here to address some of these specific aspects. Unfortunately, one of our experts, a University of Chicago Argonne Lab economist, Tim Allison, can't be here this evening, but he would be happy to meet with you all to discuss the negative economic fallout, the impact on our city should we proceed with the Albion project. I'd like to start by introducing Seth Weinberger. He's the former chair of the Evanston Zoning Board of Appeals. He will address some of the zoning issues. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. I'm Seth Weinberger. I was in blissful retirement from zoning issues until this project was introduced and got as far as it did. I appreciate that you've read the entire record, so I really just want to focus on 3 slides that are in the record. This is the first. It is from page 7. It is just trying to show the impact of the ziggurat setback. That's a technical term. It is really the tower setback portion in any of our major streets in downtown Evanston. It is required above 40 feet to set back an additional 40 feet from the sidewalk in order to create a sense of a livable scale and a walkable scale. And this is all of our streets. It's been reflected in our zoning ordinance for years, for decades. It's reflected in our downtown plan, all of our plans. If you look at the property from the north end of it, which is the right side, it is approximately 40 feet away. They were in compliance with that requirement, but only to that very small portion to the right. As it has this S-curve, it moves closer and closer to the sidewalk until it is right on the sidewalk. So it is completely in non-compliance for at least half of it, if not 80% of the building. And it's in non-compliance in the worst spot, right? Because it's in the south part of the property that it's non-compliant, right across from the street of the Holiday Inn, which is also right on the sidewalk. So it creates a canyon right in the absolute worst place that you would want a canyon, which is the beginning of Sherman Avenue as it goes north. So the second of the 3 slides is one that you've seen before, done by the developer. It's their as-of-right design. So first, I don't believe it is accurate, because it should be 4 stories smaller than that. They're including as of right the developer's allowance under a plan development, but that's not as of right. That's a discretionary allowance. So if they came as of right, it would actually be shorter than this. But what's more salient is look how narrow this building is. It's in order for them to achieve that, I'm not even sure they could put units and a corridor on this, but I can guarantee you they would not build anything like this if they had to do it as of right. This really speaks in and of itself of just how inappropriate it is to put a tower on the south side of this block over what's now Nevins when it's so narrow right on a major street. Before I get to the last slide, there has been a lot of public discussion tonight talking about density and the importance of a vibrant downtown. I get that. There's been a lot of discussion about the character of Evanston. We all get that. We spent so much time on the downtown plan in 2009 trying to balance these things. And we succeeded, and the council voted on it. And it was to create a huge amount of density in core areas and preserve areas in the periphery. And it was really just 4 blocks that the plan sought to preserve, right? The south side of Sherman, the north side of Sherman, the east side of Davis, and the west side of Davis. This is one of the 4 blocks. And, you know, keep in mind that when we go to the 37-story North Light, that's one of the other blocks that is going to be at risk. But that one, at least, it isn't the entire block that's at risk. And there's a substantial public benefit that is at least being proposed in terms of a theater. Okay, what is the substantial benefit that we are being asked to get, we are getting for really, you know, destroying one of the last 4 blocks of character in Evanston? Is it the marginal tax dollars? Is it a pocket park? Is it a few more affordable housing units? How cheaply are we going to give up the character of the last 4 blocks? And so that gets to the last slide. You've seen this. This is the property. I just want to focus your attention on the right. That's the character of Evanston in the last 4 blocks. And then I want you to look at this building. It is 100% more mass than allowed under current zoning if you take into account that ziggurat setback. It is 50% higher than as of right, really as of right, under current zoning. It is 400% higher than what we had agreed to under the plan. This really can't be negotiated. It's just too big. Next up is Greg Williams, a local architect and a planning specialist. I'll just go through. There are 4 other slides, and we don't need to go through this because they're all record, all of the other things that they're asking for variances for, but I wanted to highlight the most important. Go ahead.
Besides being so grossly oversized and dense, this proposal at the ground floor, which you see here, really is plagued by 2 fundamental planning mistakes, which will condemn the retail spaces to failure and cause extreme difficulty for every delivery on the whole development. Though this site has over 300 feet of alley frontage, the planning mistake blocks off every service possibility to the retail by a 2-lane highway, which every service must cross, congested through one single door. Additionally, the location of the residential lobby and elevators severs the retail spaces into, let's see if I can do this, into 3 different small remnants, and one of which is constricted by a fire code violation. This is a diagram of a nightmare. So these are the paths of the cars going in and going out to the alley. And these cars and the ComEd room and the generator completely cut off the alley from Sherman Avenue. Every single service element must cross this highway, and the only access to the alley is a single door. The plans show a truck space actually blocking this door. The tower has 2 stair exits. By code, one is allowed to go through the lobby and out. But the other stair has to be a pure fire barrier, and nothing else can be in that corridor. No bikes can go in that corridor, no beer delivery, no trash. So this retail space has absolutely no connection to the alley. These lines are all the paths of all the service activity. The orange is the loading, and the green is trash, In blue is a line of all the couches and mattresses that are wandering out here through the trucks in the alley. Every single thing that happens on this site crosses that little spot. This is the collision corner where a car coming down here runs into a couch crossing the path there. The trash, they show a tiny little trash room here. Can you imagine a 16-year-old taking wet trash out at midnight in the winter out to there? It's ridiculous. And then, unlike what the architect just said, if that's the trash room, then the truck picking up that trash is parked in the alley. So all of these things should have been objected to by the DAPR review. But let me show you a simple alternative. Just by simply moving the tower elevators and the entry ramps to the north part of the site, this site could be easily subdivided. You could have one large retail area that can be split up any way you want it. You have interesting entries. And this retail area could have just a small service corridor that's directly related to loading docks off the alley, trash off the alley, a trash room. Okay, this is so simple. You know, no one's out in the alley, no one's crossing any traffic. The tower could have its own loading docks and trash, you know, without any complications. It should be so simple. There should be retail. Plus, they could have retail parking with easy access out to the street. There could be retail parking in the basement. Okay, this is the second and third floor would have actually no change to what they have. And just as a conjecture, a building could have, you know, shape with color, corners, and more protection for the solar loading. Just to wrap up, in my mind, yeah, yes, this is a fantastic site. It should be developed, but this is really the wrong project. It's really poorly planned. That's a disaster, that ground floor. And it should have the units that we want to have in it, more apartment sizes. If you're thinking seniors would be good here, they should have units that are sized for seniors, designed for seniors, and priced for seniors. We should have the affordable units that the ordinance requires. It should have what we want it to have, not what someone else thinks. Thank you.
Seth Friedman, who is on the Planning Commission.
Hi, thanks. Hi, guys. You all know me. I'm Seth Freeman. I spent 6 years on the Plan Commission. My name's on the downtown plan, the 2009 plan. Johanna and I were on that. I joined the Plan Commission to create a sane plan for downtown, for a downtown we all love. I'm here to respectfully let you know that I oppose this project for everything you've heard here. The scale, it's by right should not be developed. So I'm going to give back my time, but I just wanted to let you know, since my name's on that plan, I think you guys should honor it and pay attention to it when you vote on this project. Thanks.
And now, Darlene Cannon and Kira Kelly will address some of the issues around fair housing and other economic issues.
We weren't up to speed when Seth went here, but this is the slide regarding the downtown plan. And even currently, the D4 current zoning does reference ensure consistency with the plan for downtown Evanston. And we know it's a guiding document, but it's still very much in the city council. It's on the website. It's, like I said, referenced in the zoning. So it is something that should be considered when you look at this block. Now we're going to talk about really looking at these rental projects, and the Wall Street Journal title really says it all. New luxury rental projects add to rent squeeze. A focus by builders on high-end apartments helps explain why rents are soaring across the country. And, you know, we see that we have so many luxury high-rises in this relatively small to medium-sized town. And there's a good chance that it is increasing overall rents and leading to decreasing diversity. Albion will be the 10th luxury rental high-rise in Evanston, and one still needs to be built in Emerson that's just as big as the Albion. We have fulfilled this type of housing in the Evanston market. We understand that there is a need for this, for the micro units, for the luxury units, but we have fully fulfilled it at this point. Like I said, one's coming, one was just built on Elmwood Street. We are adding the wrong type of housing right now. We really don't need any more micro luxury units. Mostly this building has 80% 450 square foot studio. Maybe they were bigger than that also, but studios and one bedrooms. This is kind of just wrapping up what I just said, but there's a list of all the high rises we have. And then the ones on the docket, possibly Albion, 601 Davis, 1700 Sherman. So we already have 1,910 luxury rental units from these high rises. You can just look up and see our entire small downtown. It's just covered with these. Okay, and so anyway, total of current and proposed 2,595. Do you want to speak?
Good evening. The Albion project and the local boosters use the affordable housing issue as a smokescreen for their real intent, which they stated that their primary target market is to attract young professionals, as they said. Anyone earning $51,000 or more could live in the least expensive units. As an alderperson has stated during council meetings that the average black Evanston resident earns $43,000. Andrew Ewell, the VP from the Development for Albion, said that any black person who earns $51,000 can live in the smaller studio units. This is $8,000 less than the income which Andrew Ewell of Albion residents said would be the minimum salary to qualify for the least expensive Albion micro luxury unit on the Sherman Avenue. If the average Evanston income is $71,000 and the average Chicago Metro income is $79,000 and the average white Evanston income is $86,000, then it's clear that the target population of Albion residents, who the target practice is for the Albion residents. Let's see. This and the city's segregated housing pattern, which have been exacerbated by the expensive luxury high-rises, have increased the disparate impact on the city's black population. In further violation of the Fair Housing Act of 1968 and amended in 1988, the Albion proposed micro units are too small for families and not accessible for the disabled, further violating the Fair Housing Ordinance. The City of Evanston should not approve the Albion proposed development because the city receives federal community development block grants, CDBG funds. The 1974 Community Development Act states that the city accepting CDBG funds must affirmatively further the cause of integration. Evanston has not situated its affordable housing units in accordance with the Act. Any approval of the Albion proposed development would further violate the federal act. It would make the city vulnerable to a federal action for the continued violation of those affirmed acts. Developments are advancing to the building permit stage, and you haven't acknowledged the complaints from citizens about those projects, such as the one at 1305 Pittner, Where a permit has not been issued, council members might ask city staff about those projects to determine that the process was fair and thorough prior to the issuance. Up to now, as to zoning, fair and thorough before you advise city staff to issue permits. It's clear that the city is to blame for the exodus of blacks due to taxes, affordability, and the practice of placing of affordable housing predominantly in minority and black areas.
Thank you, Darlene. All right. Okay.
Chair, I'm sorry, there have been so many inaccurate statements, and one just occurred, and we'd really like to object to it.
This is on the
Seth,
record.
I'm running the meeting. Thank you. Everyone, let's just hold our comments, please.
This is on the public record. That was
right. I reckon I will give you a moment in just a minute. I want to ask, Ms. Kelly, are you finished with that you have had the same amount of time as the developer has had? We need you to conclude in 1 minute.
Oh,
please.
in 1 minute. Okay. Okay, well, I was going to talk about this, but we've lost 43% of our affordable housing units, and 15 micro units is really not a solution when another luxury building might make this core problem worse. According to the Wall Street Journal, past construction cycles as new apartment buildings come online, the older buildings reduce rate or they didn't raise it, but that's not happening due in part to a supply shortage. But I don't think that the supply shortage is fulfilled with more luxury. Density, we've talked a lot about the tax base, and there's actually quite a bit of peer-reviewed research that shows that services are very expensive.
15 seconds, please.
Okay. So let's see. So small businesses in the area, we talk a lot about density for small businesses. 6 out of 7 truly small businesses that I just walked into, 6 out of 7 were against, the other one was 50-50. And here's what they said.
Ms.
Against
Kelly,
the allure
your
of
time is
Evanston.
up.
Okay, well, maybe
I'm
you
sorry.
can. Okay.
We have provided more than equal time, and
Okay.
the developers do want to have a moment to rebut some of the statements. Thank you.
Well, here's just quickly pictures of what we could and should do on Sherman. We can really have an opportunity to reimagine this block, to have it
thank you.
vibrant with outdoor cafes and realtor. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's just look at that picture then.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Pugh, did you want to speak? Yes. Okay.
Yes. We weren't sure we were going to say anything, but there have been a number of things that were said both in and outside of this room that are provably false, and we've attempted to correct them, and yet these things are continue to be said. One example was referenced just now about a 1,700 name petition, which we've identified numerous people that signed the petition are not even from Evanston. So there have been things like that, and we're not sure if you would like us to actually rule on them or raise them?
No.
Okay. And in particular, I think what really set us both off is the comments that were just made attributed to Andrew Yule.
Thank you. I typically wouldn't come up here and talk in a rebuttal form, but that's out of line. That is out of line. I've never said that. I want it to be known for the record that there was never a comment of race. Anyone that could afford to live in this building will be able to live in this building. I would never say something of the sort, and I just want that to be known for the record. It's absolutely appalling that someone would say that about me. So I apologize that I had to do that.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Committee members. No, I'm sorry. We're closing public comment. Thank you.
Just watch the tape for the
Mr. Klein, please. No. All right. We're going to bring it up here to discuss with the committee. And I'm waiting to see some lights about this. Alderman Rainey.
So let's get right to it. I would like Sarah Flax to come to the podium, and perhaps she could explain to us how the charge that approving this project could be a federal violation of the Fair Housing Ordinance. I've heard this several times, and I mean, we've been involved with community development block grant funds for the 30 years I've been here, and I'm trying to drill down.
Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Administrator. I do not see approval of this building in any way violating fair housing. We cannot tell developers what size units to make. That is not something that is a fair housing issue. We also are attempting to integrate units. The developer has actually come back with a proposal to integrate units, affordable units, in the development. There is no restriction by who would be eligible based on race or anything of the kind. Obviously, it would be people who are income eligible for those units. The developer had originally met the requirements of the inclusionary housing ordinance by proposing to pay the full fee in lieu of $1.9 million. And have two affordable units in addition. So they came back in response to the request at Plan Commission and from residents who are concerned about affordable housing.
That had nothing to do with federal law. That's our law.
Yes, exactly.
But there is no the violation of federal fair housing law.
We are not violating fair housing law if we approve this.
Thank you.
All right. So
Alderman Wilson.
That's set to rest. Our lawyer is here. She could also confirm that. So okay, we can move on now.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Wilson?
Well, one of the things I continue to be confused about, this, for example, the Wall Street Journal article keeps getting cited, but I read the Wall Street Journal article, and I read it to the end, and the Wall Street Journal article had suggestions, and one of the primary ones was to increase the supply of housing. So this seems to do that. The article also specifically said that regulatory restrictions that make development so costly and lengthy and have kept rates of construction low in other places should be removed. Zoning should be relaxed, and developers should be allowed to build smaller micro units. So maybe I'm just a little confused on the point of the article, but the article seems to say it describes a building exactly like this. So that's a little confusing to me, but what I can't seem to find anywhere is how something like this would negatively impact our segregation problem. And everything I seem to be able to locate in doing research and looking into this and trying to be thoughtful about it is the opposite. So if anybody, over the course of the next couple of weeks has anything that can show me how this would adversely affect our segregation problem, I would be interested in seeing that. But so far the materials I've been provided with either don't do that or describe the opposite. So I'm looking for that. A lot of conversations I've had in the community talk about, lovely, upscale dining experiences. That doesn't help our housing problem at all. I mean, an upscale dining experience doesn't address what we're trying to manage here. I vote on things not whether I like, I have my own opinions on what's attractive or not attractive as far as a building goes. I like certain kinds of cars. I don't like other kinds of cars. Those are taste questions. What I'm really trying to look at is how this is going to impact our community. Is this going to be a net benefit for our community? And are the other alternatives that can come after this going to be better or worse? When I consider the as-of-right options, the as-of-right options didn't look particularly appealing. When I saw, I think it was Mr. Williams, I appreciate the time and energy that went into that alternative proposal, but looking at that, the 93 units with 191 spaces, among the people opposed to it, people were talking about how we want to be transit-oriented. That's not transit-oriented. If we want to make it more affordable, great big units that are going to be really expensive and totally prohibitive, that's not helping the problem either. So I'm interested in looking at solutions to problems, and again, I think we're going to have, this isn't going to get, voted on up or down tonight, but I would really like people to be thoughtful about the things that they say, but to dig a little deeper. If you think this is going to negatively impact something, give me the reasons. I've been spending time trying to find reasons on both sides of the equation, and it's trending one way. So I've heard from a number of people. I haven't been able to answer all the emails, but I'm listening, and I want to make a good decision. So I'm looking to you to back up some of the claims.
Alderman Fisk, then Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to speak for a long time right now. I'm losing my voice, but I will speak a little bit later in the meeting as well. I had a couple of questions for the developer. I was confused about the description of the pocket park. It sounded like this was going to be open and accessible to the public, but then there was some discussion about how you're going to also be providing for an outdoor seating area for the restaurant, and in a way to sort of control who's in and who's out of the park. So it becomes, in my mind, less of a public park and more of auxiliary seating for restaurants. And so if you could clarify that for me.
Sure, absolutely, Alderman. So the general intent of the park never was for an outdoor dining experience. However, in speaking with Rob, it's something that becomes open to him is having some doors that open, some French doors or a sliding door window, sliding glass door that would open to allow some indoor-outdoor feel, but it'll be restricted to just a small portion of that park. The remaining balance of the park will be for the public. The site area is about 4,000 square feet. The park will be in the range of about 3,000, and we're working with staff to create in the ordinance the only allowed amount of space for the restaurant that is allowed. The intent is for the public. It will have sculpture work. It'll have strung lights above it. It'll have a lot of benches located all around the seating areas to sit and read a book, to bring your lunch from Rotary. The idea of the park is to create energy, to bring people to the site. We want random people just to kind of show up, pushing a stroller, sit down, take a phone call. We're engaging in that. So we're going to restrict that dining area just for some outdoor dining area, and then we're going to put up a planter bed, essentially, that would be a separator from the restaurant's portion to the rest of the portion so that the two don't intermix together at the end of the day. They become two separate entities.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say to Mr. Weinberger, where are you? Wherever you are. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. You actually... it was very helpful for me to talk about the ziggurat, for you to talk about the ziggurat setback, because I really didn't realize until you spoke about how the lack of the setback at the South or Grove Street and, not Grove, yes, Grove, Lake, right, Lake is running that way, at the Lake Street end really does create a sort of canyon entrance into the downtown, which I think is exactly the wrong thing. I think if the building were flipped, it would be a better idea too, and I don't see that there's much way that you could do that, but I think that would be at least visually better to what we want. I do want to say to everyone that this is a really tough project because it's on a site that is very difficult. You have heard me talk in the past about my interest, my very strong interest in preserving the niche retail that we have in Evanston. The problems that I see in my ward, and this is in the 4th Ward, but the problems I see in my ward with the new buildings that have been constructed is that when they're constructed with ground floor retail, what you end up with is retail at a market rate that our Evanston businesses can't afford. And so that accounts for some of the vacancy. And so at the meeting we had last week, I asked for staff and downtown Evanston to take a look at this so that I'm not making a wrong assumption. But I think that's something that we as a council need to look at, because the last thing I want to do is build a building like this and then have ground floor retail that's empty. That doesn't do us any good. And especially, please don't clap, because I'm really not going to be able to speak very long. But that does exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do here. I do also feel real strongly that, I don't remember who mentioned it, but we need to be thinking about where we're at with the downtown. Historically, Evanston, the perception was, and this is a myth, an urban myth that keeps sort of feeding on itself, was that it was hard for developers to work in Evanston. So I think various councils in the past leaned over backwards to try to be more encouraging to development and to be easier to work with, because to counteract that, the word on the street. I think we've gone way too far. And I think that it's time for us to step up and be the leaders that we need to be in determining the future of the downtown. I mean, I don't think anyone would disagree with the fact that there are character-giving blocks in the downtown that actually enhance business and wanting to come to Evanston. And if we throw these away with too much concrete and glass, then we've lost our downtown. And these are not little buildings anymore. We're not talking about, oh, well, you've got a Target over in some parking lot that you could, if you decided you didn't want that there anymore, you could tear the building down in 24 hours. You're talking about large buildings here that are going to be basically defining our downtown. So I appreciated Alderman Revelle calling the meeting last week. It was helpful. We do look at the guide of the 2009 downtown plan. I appreciated again the person who brought that up, because that does mean that there is a consistency in the way that various councils have looked at the plan to retain these character-giving blocks. And it may be Mr. Weinberger also who mentioned this. There are not very many of them. And so we should take our time to try to get it right. Aside from that, the density, the size of the units, all of that is causing me an immense amount of trouble. Thank you to the architect who brought up the possibility of looking at things a little bit differently. I thought that was very interesting. But I'm struggling with this right now. Thank you.
Alderman Rainey.
I'm just wondering if there's ever going to be a chance. We've heard people's perceptions of everything that's wrong with this. Today I heard that this was a condominium. I heard today that there were only going to be 2 units of affordable housing in this project, and that's what was wrong with it. I heard today that we're as smart as Oak Park, and Oak Park defeated this, when in reality Oak Park did not defeat it. It passed it this past week, 6-1. Tonight I heard that it's exacerbating segregation. I heard tonight that there were too many parking spaces in this building, and that it was in an area of transportation, and it was a TOD, and we should reduce the number of parking spaces here. I think it's so interesting. There are many good things about this, and to dismiss the idea that there are 15 units of affordable housing here, I think is deplorable. This, I was talking to Sue Lobeck from Connections from the Homeless. This is a historical event, having 15 units of brand new affordable housing in a fully, what did you say? What?
Excuse me, no, our affordable housing ordinance requires any affordable units to remain so for 25 years.
These are 50. When I say something is historical and that it's 15 units of affordable housing, and somebody tells me it's 2, and then you tell me it's temporary, believe me, I'm not going to be sitting up here saying these things if it's not true. Trust me, it's true. If this happens, this is a historical event, and we should embrace it. We had merchants coming before us tonight saying that this is going to help them. We had the people who own these properties right now saying, we're going out of business, the place is going to be vacant, there are 2 lots of contaminated soil, filled with contaminated soils, nothing's going to happen here, nobody's going to take it on. The lenders, by the way, are the new environmental police. Nobody's going to lend money unless you have people with deep pockets like these developers. This is an opportunity that we really can't turn down, in my mind. You know, the taste police are out, granted. Some people don't like this design. I want to speak 1 minute, maybe times 10, about what people think about the character of Evanston. The character of Evanston used to be Marshall Field's, Bramson's, Joseph Shoes, Stevens Department Store, Rothschild's, Weebolt's, I could go on and on. Oh, the Varsity Theater, the Coronet, the Valencia Theater, a bunch of little restaurants, a bunch of little cafes. That used to be the character. People thought we were all going to just die if any one of those closed. Then along came Old Orchard. And this town collapsed, literally collapsed. All those stores closed. There must have been 10 major department stores in this town that no longer exist. I think the only remaining building is really Marshall Field's and some semblance of the Varsity Theater. Along came the Research Park. Oh, that was going to save Evanston. Of course, it was a miserable failure. Then along came Alderman Nguyen and myself and the class of 97. And we talked about having a massive project of the hill development on Maple Street. Oh, if you think you have a campaign going here against this one little building, you should have seen that. Evanston, everybody was moving. We're going to move to Wilmette, to Highland Park. We're going to move to Morton Grove. It didn't matter. Everybody was leaving town because the streets were going to be filled with cars. There was going to be gridlock. People who lived out on Church Street would not be able to, people who lived on Orrington would never be able to get home again. It was going to be a horrible mess. Well, we actually were responsible for building the theaters, the hotel. We had the largest single surface parking lot in the world on Maple Avenue between Church Street and Emerson. And look at it now. And they told us also when we built it, Sherman Avenue would be dead because there was no way to connect that development with Sherman Avenue. When we shut down the Levy Center, people said, if you don't build the Levy Center on top of the Maple Avenue garage, all the seniors would die and they would never be able to enjoy life again. We built it in the middle of James Park. Nobody would ever go there. It's the most magnificent senior center you ever saw. Anyway, so life will not come to an end, and the character of downtown Evanston will not change for the worst if we build a building that some people don't like. And believe me, the 1,700 names on that petition are not 1,700 Evanston residents. We know that. So it's an amazing project that you got 1,700 names, but it is not totally reflective of all the people in Evanston. It's a great campaign, and a lot of work went into it, but it isn't the end of the world. This is a fabulous project, and a lot of good things are in this project, and I really think the good outweighs the bad. And I really think at the end of the day, this council is going to support this project because it's going to provide housing for lots of people who are going to take their money and shop at these wonderful little shops that Alderman Fisk is talking about. I don't care who goes in the new retail. That's the problem of the developer. That's our little small businesses aren't going to move in there probably. Probably a couple of real estate companies might go in there and have brokerage companies. But our little businesses need the people who are going to be living in these units shopping in their stores. They need to be going to Taco Diablo. They need to be going to Pete Miller's. They need to be going all up and down Main Street, all up and down Dempster. They're going to be going up to Simpson Street, eating in that restaurant. That's where they're going to be going.
Thank you.
Adding 200 units of housing in downtown Evanston is a phenomenal thing. Marilyn Ruiz reminded those of you who live up on Orrington Avenue, that is her neighborhood. She lives in downtown Evanston.
Thank you. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Okay. So I have to say that I was, and I guess I still am, less than enthusiastic about the aesthetics, the architecture style. But understanding the needs of our overall community, this project now has my attention, 15 units of affordable housing beyond the wards that generally have affordable housing. It's something that we've talked about as a community, wanting to expand housing, and this meets that goal in a way that we would really be challenged to meet that goal with other projects. In addition to that, it's hard to dismiss the economic activity that would support the business community downtown and the broader community. In moving forward, I would like to look at reworking the public benefit. The Divvy bike for $60,000, I think that there might be a more thoughtful use for $60,000. I believe that there are Divvy stations not too far from this location. The $50,000 for the park, is that in addition to the Harper project, or is that, I'm unsure. I would challenge the developer to meet our MWEBE goals in contracting minority, local, and women contractors. I would also challenge the developer to be thoughtful in local hiring as well. If there is a way to have a first opportunity for current Evanston residents to have access to the affordable housing, I don't know if that is a fair housing thing or not. It can't happen. So that is something that I would stand on firmly, so that we can stop our families from leaving Evanston. So I would like to continue this discussion and learn more about the opportunities.
Thank you. Alderman Revelle, and then Alderman Wilson. Alderman Revelle hasn't had an opportunity to speak.
Sure. Just picking up on Alderman Ruth Simmons' mention about whether Evanston residents could be moving into those affordable units. They'd come from the SEPA waiting list, or just a question?
One of the things that Council approved was funding to develop our own waiting list for the inclusionary units. It would come from that list. And that list will have a priority for people who currently live and work in Evanston, and we will bring that back for review by the Housing and Homelessness.
But that's the waiting list that SEPA is
Yes, they're managing it for us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, yep.
What is SEPA?
Community Partners for Affordable Housing.
Okay, but that's not that list.
No.
This is a
That's
local
different.
list. It
Right.
has nothing to do with anybody else's.
Yeah, we approved engaging SEPA to keep that waiting list for us because we knew we were going to have these affordable units coming online. Well, I certainly do appreciate the economic vitality that a development on this site would bring to Evanston. The area really does need redevelopment. I there are a couple of, and the fact that there are going to be affordable units in the building are really, really important. We know how expensive it is to build new affordable units, and we heard the price tag tonight, $350,000 each. We've talked a lot about how we keep saying we want to have significant public benefits in these projects, and yet we've never really quite defined what we mean by it. One of the public benefits that is on the list and wasn't highlighted tonight, I find very creative, and that's the partnership with ETHS to conduct workshops and bring the students in to learn more about the building trade. I think that would be really exciting. I'm not troubled by the parking, number of parking spaces. I do believe that it reflects the current vehicle ownership patterns, and so I do think the parking allowance is adequate. But I guess I am very troubled by the scale and the mass of the project, and I really don't. I'm troubled by it in that particular location, which should be a transition to the lower density buildings to the south. And we've heard quite a bit now tonight about the ziggurat requirement. I was rereading the Evanston zoning code and the whole all page after page about plan developments, and it's right there at the very beginning of the discussion about the requirements for a plan development, and it's a ziggurat setback, and it talks about how important that is to maintaining a pedestrian feel to people walking on the street. And the fact that the very south end of the project would be no setback in the top and right where it should be transitioning and being lower and providing more of a pedestrian feel. It's not doing that at the south end of the building. So I would love to see the developers keep working to address some of these concerns and see if there's some way to make the project a more appealing one.
All right. Alderman Wilson.
Okay, I'll try
and
to
I think we'll get ready to wrap this up.
To pick up one of Alderman Rainey's themes, I don't live in Evanston because of the buildings. I live in Evanston because of the character of the people. So when I think about the character of Evanston, I think about my neighbors. I think about my friends. I think about the people I get the opportunity to interact with doing this job. So to me, that's what it's really about. And these buildings are going to change. Buildings don't last forever. Some last a really long time. And I guess to kind of tie that into the whole idea about the plan, I've talked to a lot of people about the issues I have with the plan. I don't want to follow the plan as it's written. You know, there are a lot of good points and a lot of good ideas in it, but at the same time, that plan would allow developers to take down existing awesome buildings that I love in this city. So you could have large swaths of 2- and 3- and 4-story buildings in the what's defined as the core area. You know, as of right, put up a 25-story, 30-story building, and we really wouldn't have much to say about that. So that's really what that part boils down to. It's not that I don't appreciate the concepts in the plan. It's not that I don't appreciate the ideas and the ideals. I do, but at the same time, while I'm here for the character of the people, I don't want to wreck, you know, what does really make this special. And this block, you know, I get the idea about the transitional nature, but, you know, it's not the most special block in town. I've tried to get this petition. I can't get this petition. I'm interested in getting it. So that's the 1,700 person petition. Okay, if somebody could just, if that could be sent to the council, I'd appreciate that.
I think all of us on the council would like to see the petition rather than just get a ping.
I would like to get it because I haven't been able to get it. And again, back to that whole point about the supply and demand, I talk about that in a lot of different contexts, but if there's other evidence out there that shows that I'm wrong about that, I would be interested to see that. More supply, if we add housing to our existing housing stock. The reference to the loss of affordable housing keeps getting made. I keep making this point over and over again. That housing, for the most part, didn't get torn down. There are exceptions to that. But the housing became unaffordable because the wages are not keeping up with the rents. So there might be two opportunities here. So we say we want affordable housing, and we can raise the wages. Okay, we did a little bit of that so far. But if we have more supply, that's going to help stabilize the increase in the rents. And again, I don't think I'm wrong, but if somebody's got something to show me, I might be interested in seeing it.
All right, thank you. I see no more lights, so finally, as chair, I will make some of my own remarks. Alderman Rainey, do you mind if I go first? Okay. Okay. There are some positive aspects of this this proposal. I agree having affordable housing in our downtown is very, very positive. But I'm troubled by the mix of the affordable housing, the number of studios, and I know that we do need some studios, but predominantly these are 2-bedroom or smaller. And I know that we do have demand in the community for affordable housing for our families. So that is something that I'd like to hear more about, if that we can get a different mix. But when I look at this, I do think the place where this development starts is the land price. And right now, this land is looking for what is the correct price. And depending on what we do up here, a marketplace will be established for land in Evanston. And I understand that land price then drives what the development will be that can be built on this. And I want to make sure that, I think that the mass on this and the density is too large for the site. I don't, everyone has a different opinion about architecture. I do think there's good and bad in Evanston. But I think fundamentally, because of the length of this site and because of the height, it is going to create a wall. I recognize, as Alderman Fisk says, this is a difficult site to build on. It's a trapezoid. That's expensive to build on a site that looks like this. But that should also be part of the land price, that this is an expensive site to build on for any developer. So the price should be reflected. So I don't like the mass. I don't like the density. I think that the southern end should not be as tall as it is. I do appreciate the ziggurat aspect. It has worked for us in a number of places. And I'm concerned about the precedent that this might set for future developments, because this then demonstrates what the city will approve, which then changes the land price throughout Evanston. I don't want to send that signal. I want to send a signal that shows that we want a different mix of affordable housing, that we don't want to blow the roof off our development allowances, that they're there for a purpose, and that I don't think in this instance, what I'm seeing so far, I don't believe that the public benefits justify the size and mass of this building right now. So the block clearly needs to be developed. It's underdeveloped right now. It's walkable to our downtown. We should have a good development there. And we will get one. I don't know that right now it's in this form. I do want to speak to the community all of the issues that have been being raised. I appreciate the advocacy. I was a citizen in your shoes long ago. It's why I'm here now. And my issue lost in front of the city, in front of the ZBA, and in front of the city council. It's how I know Seth originally. He was chair of the ZBA when I lost. And but I think it's really, really important to be accurate when you're sending information out throughout the community. There's a lot of inaccurate information that's going around the community, and it really undermines our ability to listen to the good ideas that people are bringing to us. We have never had micro units until 831 Emerson. No one has ever labeled their units micro units. They've never been called micro units. To say that we have 7 buildings in Evanston, some of which go back to before I moved here in 1988, that have micro units is just wrong. That's not true. And to say that the number of buildings that, we've had this laser focus on developing high-rise luxury units with micro units, which is what I was handed the other day in a statement, is not true. And there may be good arguments being made by people, but it's really hard to cut through the inaccurate information. And just today, all of us have heard a lot of really nasty rumors that are circulating in the community about really worthwhile groups here receiving money from the developer, which are just not true. And so, as I really want to hear from people about critical, constructive criticism, but, the buzz of all of the, and I'll call it fake facts, really does a disservice to everyone in the community. So I would appreciate it if everyone checked their facts. We're all up here. We have a wide open city website. I'll get answers for you on occupancy rates at buildings and size of units if you want. But please don't, let's just stick to the fact. There's plenty to talk about. So let's all stick to that. Now, I think we should, I'd like someone to make a motion. I would like to hold this in committee because I want to hear more from the community.
Move to hold.
Madam Chair, I think that the rest of the council needs to weigh in on this, and we can't have that if we keep it here. Doesn't mean that we have to pass it or anything, but the rest of the council needs to have an opportunity to discuss this, and they can't do that. I know Alderman Fleming really wants to talk about this.
Alderman Rainey, I'm not ready to move this forward. I want to hear the answers, and really, traditionally, this is where we have the discussions that we're talking about. So I'm going to move to hold, and if I can get a second, it'll stay here.
Second.
All right. So this matter is going to stay here. It'll be here 2 weeks from now at this committee meeting, where I'm hoping that we'll hear more information back from the developer on the issues that have been discussed by members of the council. And if the community would like to continue this discussion, we're here. Okay. Thank you all very much. Now we're going to move on with the rest of our agenda. All right. I think we're ready for adjournment. Is that it? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. The council will start in 10 minutes, 10:35.